Like it's coming from yours.
as the direct result of the bridge tolling going up. So 2 days a week, I can ride the bus to work. And then also last year, I had a whole bunch of physical therapy I was doing. And I rode the bus most every day for physical therapy too.
I use it to get back and forth from work and to be very independent from my mom and dad.
And we had to basically take him back and forth to work. We didn't know about, of course, gas savings, all of those type of things, you know, wear and tear on the car.
Evening. Pardon, but City Hall's muted, I believe.
Stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, this is the opportunity for. Oh boy. Is it the?
That's my
Thank
fault.
you.
That's me.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Who's the new guy? No, where it went? Where did it go?
There you go.
It's gonna be a mistake that.
Me too. Well,
Yeah.
Good. Good.
Proceed.
Thank you, sir. Ben. All right, this is an opportunity for public comment. If you'd like to address the council, this is your opportunity. Would anybody like to speak? Okay. Is there a sign-up sheet down there?
There is no one has signed up.
All right, who's up? Mary, raise your hand.
Mary Rapar Stevenson. I saw on your agenda you have the EDC Economic Development Council. And I'd like to put some objections to giving them money because they don't have comment periods during their meetings for the public. They're accepting public money. And I believe they should be transparent and accountable to the public. I called them. They told me, well, our meetings are confidential. We don't have a time for public comment. You know, I wasn't asking to be in their confidential meetings. I just wanted to know if they had a public comment period because I wanted to go and introduce myself and say, you know, what are you doing and how are you doing it? And they don't. And I think that organizations like that should not be supported with public funds. They are using public money, and there should be an opportunity for the public to at least speak at the beginning of the meeting to say, hey, I want to know what you're doing with our public money. And you all have instituted public comment at the beginning of the meeting. And you've also instituted it at the end of the meeting, and that's transparency. And I think any organization that our city contributes money to should also be, at least have a public comment. Again, people don't need to be in on their confidential, because we're talking money and projects that might need to be confidential, but at least there should be an opportunity for public comment for the public to ask, what are you doing with our money? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? All right, hearing none. Were there any changes, Ben?
There were changes. This is one I'll kind of report on later in the council report. So this is the opportunity for the council to add or request discussion of any items that are on the agenda or not on the agenda.
I would like to move a consent agenda item.
Which one?
Item D. I have some questions about the contracts.
Okay, anybody else? With the exception of item D, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'm going to approve consent agenda items A through C and E through G.
Second. You have a first and a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You.
Congratulations, Ray. Congratulations, Ray.
Congratulations, buddy. Congratulations, Ray. Okay. Dave?
Oh, you can let me go ahead and do that before the.
Yeah, we don't have to push it in.
Okay, all right. The concern that I have is, within the contract, talks about, let me bring it up here. We have I believe that it was Chuck that had made the motion to not exceed 20, I don't know.
Right.
Nine.
The dollar, yes.
Yeah.
It's the same dollar.
Yeah. But then the actual, verbiage says that, it's with the, actual travel plus actual travel costs over and above contractual allotment. So a couple of concerns I have is, what are those costs going to be? In the supplemental services, other expenses not included, additional on-site visits by the recruiter over and above the 2 on-site visits, including included in the fixed price, are an additional cost. Travel time and on-site time are billed at a professional fee of $1,000 per day, meals back billed, per diem rate, 15 for breakfast, 20 for lunch, 30 for dinner, mileage And, we're being reimbursed at the current IRS rate. I don't know if that's from Texas or from where. Since they are from Texas, all of the travel related expenses are billed back at actual cost with no markup for overhead. The other concern I have is they also state that the organization bears the cost of candidate travel and candidates are reimbursed directly by the organization. I don't think I've ever applied for a job where the potential employer was paying my travel to come apply for a job. For some reason, that just, that doesn't seem right to me. So anyway.
Which paragraph are you looking at?
Pardon?
Which paragraph are you looking at?
Yeah, this is further down in the contract.
Page 15 of the proposal.
It sounds pretty close. Yeah, it's quite a way. It's pretty deep. So anyway, those were, my concerns with the contract itself. So how we go about addressing that, or if we address that, I just wanted to bring those up because those are concerns I have. I don't like open ends.
So I have heard of candidates being getting transportation to the interview. Not to say that that means that we need to provide that service ourselves, but it is.
Okay. Well, I think we're in a. I think when we're looking at our stuff here as far as budget goes, I prefer to be more in a survival mode. And so that's why I was bringing these things up.
Yeah.
I know we did put the cap on it for the purpose of coming back to addressing any specific issues that would exceed that amount. So if they started billing us for something that was in excess of what we originally agreed on, then.
Yeah.
And we had the representative from here. It was here.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I'm confused by what you mean by that. I mean, we have that cap, but yet this is going over the cap. The potential of it is going over the cap. The only concern I have is that there were some outfits that we looked at that were considerably cheaper, that several thousand that were less, and that we didn't drill down on. So the fact that for me, this was kind of a compromise, just to have consensus that we would go with this outfit, and so then to have these loopholes in there bother me.
Did Leanna or anybody after our vote in council communicate our final understanding that we had a cap on it?
Bad question.
Yes, we have. So we've worked with them. The not to exceed in the contract language specifically has these things in here, that you can go over that, but still within the contract. And so that's why I'm bringing it back to you, because there was that cap, and then there's this language where there are loopholes built into that. And so acknowledging those, the actual travel for the recruiting firm specifically, because it sounds like you all want a very hands-on and good service from them. So if they were to travel for a third time, I believe, having that, you aware of that in advance, or not approving that, so that we know at contract management stage to say, no, we can deal with just 2 periods of travel for you.
I think it was pretty clear in our intention that whatever costs were incurred were not to exceed the amount that we discussed.
Okay.
So what do we do then? Because if we pass this, then are we gonna we've authorized to go over that amount?
Well, did we sign a contract that was contrary to what council had discussed?
You may have authorized to go over that amount contractually, but as a contract manager, we still need to authorize specific costs there. And so if we have the council's direction not to authorize those costs, we're not going to authorize those costs.
So can we amend the contract though? Then,
You don't
Can we
trust
say- can
staff
we-
to do that, you
Trust-
can,
Yeah,
you can request an amendment to that contract.
we could make a motion, someone could make I'm just wondering if this is a solution. We make a motion to approve it with an amendment. That we don't go over it, so the contract language itself takes into account that is a total dollar, and I don't, just off the cuff, I don't know the best way to make that, but you get what I'm saying.
Mhm.
To where then that's an amendment to the contract, if they don't like it, they don't have to accept it. But, that's poorly worded the way I said that, because I'm just throwing that out as a suggestion. It's not a formal motion, but I could put that into a motion if you wanted, and try to word it better.
that sounds good, but bigger question is whether the contract's already been signed.
Contract has been signed as authorized before. It's here for your ratification. So if you choose not to ratify that, then it's back to the negotiation phase.
Or we
I
could,
could, well. Yeah, except we don't want to hold this process up another month, or like Ben says, we trust him to understand what council's wishes are on this, that he can manage that we do not exceed that cap.
Well, okay, so it says in here, the scope remains the same, and it also says the fee remains not to exceed.
Right.
Let's just make that very. Done.
okay,
The scope remains the same,
okay.
the not to exceed remains the same, $28,900.
Okay, so we amend the contract to say,
Well-
to have that be period. Is
You
what-
think
that's what I
That's
do.
the ratification.
That's your ratification. Our contract manager will make sure that our wishes,
Okay.
your wishes.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of
Right,
something like that.
they,
Okay,
that company doesn't.
okay. So
Because we're managing it it's with them, so, yeah.
however that gets
One
accomplished.
more
How would you like us to say that?
So do we need a
Man,
motion?
how would you like to say that?
Well, we do have to approve it, so
Right.
let's see, to be a motion to approve the contract with Strategic Government Resources, ratifying. What would you like to hear, Ben?
Motion to ratify the contract, and then maybe something like with the understanding that it will not exceed.
Total cost.
Total
Alright,
cost.
Alright, so let me try it,
Go.
if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
Alright, so I'd like to make a motion, to, let's see, where did we go? We're gonna ratify, the contract with Strategic Government Resources for Executive Recruitment Services, with the scope remaining the same, the fee remains the same, not to exceed $28,900 period
In total.
in total.
Second.
First and a second, any further discussion? All fair say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hey. We already did all those.
If I read the same thing, I was curious about like. And but just so you know, as far as travel, they would have to drive here from Texas to get mileage from Texas. You can't get mileage from flying, it's gotta be in your own personal car, so that would be kind of a
I'm just
tricky.
saying,
Oh, wait.
depends on if you wanna make money or not.
That'd be a
I think we're on to the
legit-
next item.
Yeah, I think we are. All right, sheriff's report. There is.
Here, Tracy.
Evening, you guys should have documents that show the activity for the month of September as well as the previous quarters up to the first of the year. And the updated training schedule for the last quarter. So are you have any questions about the documents that were provided to you?
Just a quick observation of a fair amount of absenteeism.
Pardon?
There's a fair amount of absenteeism on the documents that you gave us.
Talk about the number of employees.
Absentee,
Ism of employees.
yeah, of employees, I'm sorry.
I mean, like
Sick,
sick?
yeah.
Well, a lot of that's maternity leave that
Oh.
officers are going on because there seems to be a baby boom. So that's something that we are required to do by law to allow them to take that time with their families when they have a newborn.
Male or female, by the way.
Right,
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's why you see that, and there's been several officers that have been involved in that. I think there's one right now, and we just had a couple in the past that went through the same thing, but something we have to meet the requirement for.
Sheriff, can you comment just briefly on what we had a discussion on over the phone? Just
Yes, sir, Mr.
Give
Cox.
us your
Yeah.
take on it.
Yeah. No, we have had some changes. We had an officer that, graduated from the academy. He was going through our internal training, our FTO program. He didn't meet the standards, so we let him go. We want to make sure that whatever we put on the street's qualified and able to meet not only the state standards, but our standards as well. We had an officer in the academy that there was an issue there. We let the academy address it, and there was a time frame in which the individual could miss academy time before they would make them restart the academy over again. Their investigation took longer than we anticipated. They went beyond that time, so we chose to let him go. Not gonna send him back through. So we've lost those two. We did do a job offer to a candidate on the west end, and we were able to get him scheduled to start the academy mid-November. So we're technically down 3 people at this point in time for the patrol.
Does that include Brandon?
Pardon?
Does that include Van Bill? Going to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it includes Van Belt, but it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't include, we still have to fill the North County position. We have a background going on right now for an individual that lives on a Trout Lake that I think would be a really good fit for that, but we're only in the background phase. And we are looking at, a hard budget this year, so, we're doing the best we can to make sure that we're meeting the needs. I think we're meeting your needs and the community needs. It is a stretch and there is some overtime involved. And we're doing our best to make some adjustments to correct that. I've made a decision kind of to adjust the detectives to help cover during the daytime. So they're still doing detective stuff, but they're also available to assist during patrol 7 days a week. So kind of maneuvered that a little bit. And I think that will help, on some of the overtime accrual, as they're capable of doing search and rescue and everything else as well. So we're making the transition to make things better and positive and less costly as much as we can.
Thank you.
I just
Thank
have
you.
a quick question. And if your 0.3% sales tax thing passes and brings you in extra revenue, will 100% of that revenue end up going for animal control, or will you have excess you're using for other things? And then second part of that is, do you have any estimate on how much you think that will generate in the first year? In additional
I'll be
revenue
honest
for
with you,
you?
I don't have an answer for that. That's something that the sheriff has actually worked on directly more so than me, so I'm not gonna answer on her behalf.
Okay, in terms of the first part though, will it all be going for animal control?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, so that'll just be a general revenue thing for whatever,
Well, again,
including animal control.
I can't answer that because of the budget restraints that we're going right now, and I don't know exactly where this is all gonna come up, and I don't want to predict something
Okay,
that's not in place. I don't know if this is
I understand.
actually gonna pass,
okay.
so I'm not gonna make assumptions.
And from looking at the current projected proposed budget, you don't have that 3% added into the budget right now.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, have a good evening.
You too.
All right, we have some guests here this evening. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and take it away.
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Kathy Fitzpatrick. I work for the Mid-Columbia Economic Development District as the Regional Mobility Manager. And one of my roles is to help to coordinate the regional public transportation providers. Sophia's here, who you probably know well, who runs Skamania County Transit. So we're going to give you a presentation today that gives you a brief history of the partnership of the 5 different transportation providers in the Gorge, each one representing one of the 5 counties in the Gorge, so bi-state partnership. We'll give you a brief history, and then we'll have a very engaging updates and just telling you a little bit about the transit system, the network, and how it's working right now in all of our new projects. This is Emily Reed. She is our consultant. She's working on 2 specific projects with us. She does our marketing and outreach, which these last 2 years has really been focused on our more vulnerable populations, our residents, people who need and who really need the transit system to get around. So we've had a real focus on the people who live here and the people who need transit system most. Our other project is the Gorge Regional Transit Strategy implementation. So we just recently finished a large planning work that took us about 3 years. Some of you may have been involved. I know Ben was consistently updated, and Leanna had participated in a lot of our workshops. So we're now putting that plan into and making it reality. So a lot of those projects you'll see today. We'll just keep going. Great. All right. So brief history. Let's start with Skamania County. So it was Skamania County in 2011 that launched the very first fixed route in the gorge. So that fixed route that continues to this day and just continues to get more popular and more used. And then in 2016, Skamania County Transit added a seasonal route to Dog Mountain, so helping to mitigate the congestion and the safety issues there at Dog Mountain. Since then, Columbia Area Transit has taken it over, and it continues to get more and more popular. We're going to have to get more buses on the road, and we're hoping to expand it more days because the other days of the week are filling up. The parking lot is filling up, and we've got congestion and safety problems midweek as well as weekends. 2017, Columbia Area Transit in Hood River, they launched a fixed route up to Parkdale. 2021, you can see how we have expanded, and you can see that we finally have a real true network. So you can get from Goldendale on the very northeast side out to Portland. So we can get our veterans from Goldendale to the VA hospital in Portland. We can get people to the airport. We can get people from the Dalles over to Fisher's Landing. So it's really become a true network, a transit network. And to have for discovery, so that residents and visitors and people who are using the system, so that they know how to use the system, we've got a great website that shows everyone's routes, everyone's schedules. There's more information for riders, how to pay your fare if you're just doing a single trip. Of course, we've got the Gorge Transit Pass that we'll be talking about in a second. And here it is, the Gorge Transit Pass. So that was in 2021. The 4 providers that are actually providing fixed route services got together and have worked out a universal fare mechanism so that anybody can use either their smartphone, or buy a physical pass. And for the very low cost of $40 a year, they can ride, they can have unlimited rides on this system. And I've ridden the Skamania County Transit buses a lot this year. I've been doing a lot of onboard surveys, and pretty much everyone is using the pass on their phone. It's really exciting. And they're really excited about that opportunity. Along with the Gorge Transit Pass, and Emily will cover this a little bit with our equity fund, we also have a great system to provide our low-income residents with free Gorge Transit passes. So we've been able to build up quite a few of those free Gorge Transit passes for each of the counties. And I'm gonna turn it over to Anne.
Great, so the Gorge Pass also came with an ability to get the word out. So we have a monthly newsletter. We have social media that we put out, both to locals as well as to get folks from the metro areas coming in without their cars, and to let folks know about things like Dog Mountain when that's in season, or Multnomah Falls, where if you go by bus, you don't have to worry about any reservations or parking hassles. We have posters everywhere. We are all often at many events and getting the word out to folks out there. And as Kathy was saying, $1 from every pass goes to our Gorge Equity Fund that we set up, and that is going to support passes for low-income programs, but it also allows us to promote some of those organizations that are dedicated to getting people out into the outdoors, who haven't traditionally felt comfortable, and also to search and rescue. We also have an employer sales buy one, give one program, so that allows us to give more passes as well. Yeah,
great. So I told you a little bit about the Gorge Regional Transit Strategy, and what we decided to do to the pieces, the recommendations that came out of that strategy. We decided to really focus on operations. So we were going to really do all of, just really nail all of those recommendations to make this transit system work for our riders and our residents within the Gorge. So, so if you look at this great diagram, you can see that that we really focused. We started our first focus on our transfers. So trying to make those transfers in a timely manner so that people aren't waiting over an hour for their next bus. So for instance, on the far right there, you can see that straight blue line. That is the blue line from Goldendale to the Dalles. So we made sure that when that bus comes into the Dalles, if people are trying to go on to Portland, they're going to have to get on a link bus, and then at CAT, they're going to have to get on another bus to get to Portland. So what we made sure was that they had a streamlined trip. So they get off one bus, they get right back on another bus, and off they go. So they're not waiting for long periods of time at a bus stop. So this is our pulsing, where we have at the Columbia Area Transit in Hood River, we have a pulsing station. So this is our transfer hub where all of the buses meet at the same time and transfer their passengers and then go off to their different routes. So it's a really exciting pulse. It's really exciting to be there when they are pulsing, because everyone's kind of running around and doing the musical chairs, getting on their next bus. It's pretty fun.
Okay, and I also just want to point out that it's one thing to have one bus station, company organize their routes and pulse. It's another thing to have 4 different, completely different organizations who have their own things that they're having to worry about work together. It's been very impressive to watch these people work. It's been amazing. Now we're gonna have a little bit of fun with transit. It's true. We're gonna make this really quick and fun. So my first question is, how many of you here have ridden the bus in the Gorge? Nice. I love it. Okay, how many of you have done it more than twice? Okay, every month, regularly, more than 3 times, 4, 5. Who wins? Who's done it the most? 5 times? 3? 3? Okay, you win. Okay, you get to choose the topic.
Oh, boy.
Choose one of the topics. We've already done brief history. We'll go through these quick. They're quick.
All right, money.
Money.
Today's budget hearing.
Money. Here's my question. What's the average cost of ownership of a car every year? Every year it costs this amount to have a car. How many? 4. 4? 10. It's $10,000. It's 72 cents a mile. So you can look at all of the different ways that we spend our money. So if we have so those of us who don't have brand new cars, will have to pay maintenance. And those who have other brand new cars get to pay their finances. So it's really, it's quite expensive. How much does it cost to ride the bus in the gorge?
$40.
Yeah. Yay, I love it. How much does it cost if you don't have a pass and you go to Vancouver?
Two.
Yes, I love this audience. This is fantastic. Also, in terms of cost, there's gas, of course. 4.2 billion gallons of gas annually is saved if you use public transit. Not you personally, obviously. And there's, due to public transit, there's 300,000 fewer automobile fill-ups every day. So transit is less expensive. Okay, I have another question. How many times does the bus go into Vancouver every day?
Two.
Four. Who said four?
I did.
You get, okay, it's 5. So you win, you get to choose.
Dogs.
Dogs. Do you know that you can?
5 each way?
It's 5 each way, yeah, you can back, yes, 5 that way, 5 back.
Seems like a lot, huh? You could have riders going 5 times.
Yes, you could do that whole, yes. Okay, every single bus in the gorge, you can bring your dog as long as it's on a leash or your cat in a crate. So you can take your dog for a ride.
They don't have to have a cone.
They don't have- How many times a day does the bus go to Portland?
5.
More,
Is that from Cascade Locks?
yes,
That's 7 days a week.
7 days a week. How many times a day? You're the closest, but we have one other person. That's close, but not quite. Oh, so close. Yes.
This is to Gateway?
Okay, you can choose.
Is this to Cascade
Who said nine?
Station?
I did.
It's to Gateway.
Gateway?
Yeah.
Congestion.
Congestion. Okay. Do you have congestion here? What % of a car's life is spent parked?
90.
95. Nice. Okay. So, and when you're thinking about, especially this group, there are very few land uses that generate less revenue than surface parking lots. And in fact, they're more likely to reduce the economic success of a downtown than to improve it. So, and when you have a transit stop located near a retail property, it increases that value by 167%.
Lucky Main Street.
And I just want to share 2 programs that have gone on in Hood River, and the Dalles just started theirs. It is something you could do as well, where they incentivize people that work downtown to take the bus. And therefore, so it would be a little bit harder in Stevenson. But it could be possible for some folks. This is a program that you can think about funding. Also, I will say that the Columbia Gorge Express that goes to Portland, it has taken 17,000 cars off the road each year. So that's what we're trying to do, is get the folks who are coming out to visit to not to leave their cars and not have them park in our downtown areas, come spend their money and then go back on the bus. And of course, it saves, there's a real I'm sure you know this case study well, which is the Dogwood Mountain, really allowing the number of folks to come without the really unsafe parking on the highway. Okay, let's see, we're going real quick. How many riders gorge wide did we have in 2023?
250,000.
Oh, so that was closer. It was not quite that. In 1 year, it's 105,000. Yeah. So it's, yeah. So who wants to do the next guess? Or you guess.
We do. Accessibility.
Accessibility. Okay, all of our buses in the gorge are accessible. It's an amazing way for folks with mobility to be able to get around. We know that that accessible travel is $58 billion. And for example, Travel Oregon, and I know that's on that side, but we're going to get the benefits over here. They're about to really focus in on accessibility and really dial in Oregon as a destination. And so we'll see more and more folks coming to visit from that number as well. But more importantly, it just allows folks to get around. And we have a new website called Accessible Gorge where there's a number of like basically places that you can go to eat or museums or trails all the information is gathered so that people can look ahead of time and know their own disability, look ahead and see what they have, what kind of bathrooms, what the doors look like, etc. So
And includes the Washington site.
Oh, yeah,
There's
sorry.
There's a lot of,
There's like 70, there's a number of folks in this town that are on there.
Can I ask how late the buses run coming back from PDX area to here?
PDX, I think it's 6:30 or 7, right?
oh, the latest.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's just seven.
Yeah, which is, if you have a flight, for example, that's in the middle of the day or, between 6 to 6 or what have you, it's the best way to go right to the front door of the airport, and you don't have to pay for parking, long-term parking. It's quicker, easier, cheaper to do it that way than to, do
You gotta be coming home before 6 o'clock though.
Yes, you do have to plan it. And it's for this time. And then the other thing that we're doing is we've gotten an award, a transit award for this, and we are now mapping all of the bus stops for accessibility so people know what it's like, what the ground is like, and where the local or the nearest restrooms are, etc. So accessibility is a big deal for us. Okay, last ones. Let's see, what's last one. Let's see. How many times safer is it to ride the bus than to ride in a car?
That's how who's driving.
This is obviously encapsulated. Yes, encapsulated.
10 times?
Yes, 10 times safer. Do you want to pick, let's see what's, you gotta do riders, yeah. Okay, and we'll, these are the number of riders that we have in Skamania County from 2016. There is a dip. Guess what that was? Yeah, so COVID really hit transit hard nationally, but our local providers actually bounced back much faster and quicker and better than most providers in the country, which is great. Skamania is the shining star of, as you can see, the growth. There's more and more riders. The better the access and routes and number of routes you can offer, the better exponentially gains riders. And so what we're doing now is doing rider surveys quarterly. So we've done a couple of them now. We're going into the fall, and we basically know how many riders we have, but we don't know where are they going, why are they using transit, what's working, and what can we improve. And so using that information, we're able to, I did a little video for you so you can see, here's who the riders are. Please work.
Mayor of Hood River, and I also drive the bus for Mount Adams Transportation. I have folks who ride the bus who are coming to work. They maybe use the bike rack on the front. Maybe they just hop on downtown and come across the river to their place of business. It's always interesting to see who does it and why.
I see all different kinds of people. I've seen younger people, I've seen couples, I've seen people my age.
And I live here in Goldendale, down to Portland pretty regularly to the airport because I fly back east to see my kids, and often I leave my car for extended periods, and as everybody knows, it's quite expensive. So I catch the bus.
I started riding the bus back in September as the direct result of the ridge tolling going up. So 2 days a week, I can ride the bus to work. And then also last year, I had a whole bunch of physical therapy I was doing. And I rode the bus most every day for physical therapy too.
I use it to get back and forth from work and to be very independent from my mom and dad.
And we had to basically take him back and forth to work. We didn't know about the wet bus at the time. And it has been, of course, gas savings, all of those type of things, the wear and tear on the car, the economy, the ecology, everything, less driving. And it's been great.
So having the bus is so convenient. You can go to the stores, you can go to the doctor. It's really important.
My boyfriend lives in Portland, and so the Columbia Gorge Express has literally changed our relationship, really. It's made everything so much easier, so much more stress-free, and I don't have to worry about parking, and I don't have to worry about the rain, because I hate driving in the rain, so I get someone else to do it for me. it is wonderful.
The bus is for people who don't drive, or they do drive. It will save them on gas money too.
And that's what it looks like. And this is something that people can get, and it works for all 4 transit systems.
I have a Gorge Pass. I love it. I ride the bus to Portland pretty regularly from Cascade Locks. It's great.
We recommend using the shuttle to get to Dog Mountain.
It was great. Hold on, this is actually blowing my mind that it goes to Multnomah Falls.
It goes all over the gorge.
It does.
You
can reach 20 different trailheads with this.
Like, I literally grew up here and didn't realize this, so I'm pretty stoked about that.
It's pretty amazing.
It's amazing. Goldendale, I think it's huge because there are people who can't walk around, for instance. To be able to get the bus to go to the grocery store, to take the bus to get to school, you know your kids are going to be safe on the bus.
I can say without a doubt that one of the most important aspects of a vibrant community is the public transit system.
All right, thank you. And also, we did an extra study about the bridge, and there's 600 folks that went across the bridge the last year, and we asked why. And a few folks were like veterans or people going to Walmart or doing errands, but 80% of the people were going to commute for work. So it is a great asset for the community that way. Okay, that's it. I just wanted to, bikes, and you can throw your bike on the bus and go anywhere. It's great. So I'm gonna just end with what's new and hand it over to Kathy first.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a story. I met somebody on the bus when I was doing one of the onboard surveys, and she got on the bus. She is a person with developmental difficulties and challenges, and she met our travel trainer, our new travel trainer. So one of our new projects is to bring a travel trainer to Klickitat and Skamania counties. So she's bilingual. She's amazing. She had taken the students with disabilities here in Skamania County. There was a whole class, and they had there were 2. We had our Oregon travel trainer ride with them as well. So they rode the bus into to Fisher's Landing, and the kids had chosen the place that they wanted to go. So that's how she met the travel trainer. And then afterwards, she asked for an individual travel training session, and she got that. And so he was able to meet with Dad. So because she felt comfortable and her dad felt comfortable with her riding the bus, she was able to get a job in downtown Stevenson, and during the summer, and she was able to ride. I think she was working 3 days a week, and was able to ride the bus there. So that's how I met her. She was on her way to work, and I happened to be on the very same bus that she used to get back home from to get back home from work. And she was can't tell you how wonderful it is to see somebody like that who will never drive in their lifetime, but to see them really gain freedom and independence and autonomy and feel so good about herself. So that's really wonderful. Also, her dad works full time, so it really relieves him as well. And you can see from the father and son who were part of the video, they were also from Skamania County, I think.
They had to go before they had to go into Vancouver every day, wait or come back. It was
Yeah, they had to drive him into Vancouver to work. So he's able to have this freedom and independence in his life that wouldn't be possible otherwise. And I'll pass it over to Sophie.
Sure. So in 2021, we were able to get a regional mobility grant through WSDOT so we could expand our transit, because prior it was more of a commuter bus to Vancouver and back, and it's limited the times and such. So since 2021, we've been going across the bridge to Cascade Locks. We are going to Bingen now, so the whole gorge is connected. And then we continue to go to Vancouver, and like Emily had said earlier, we've really been working on coordination and trying to make transfers more seamless, and people have really noticed our ridership went up 30% from 2022 to 2023, so significant. Coming up, the WASDOT biennium will end in June of 2025, and so I have submitted a grant to combine. The two grants were separate, so combine the transit grants and then actually ask for an additional route, so like a fourth route, because we have one that's kind of more focused on a shuttle through, like, for locals, so they go to Cascade Locks, Carson, Home Valley, you know, they meet up with the buses that go to Vancouver and Portland. So I'd like to do that for the afternoon. So that's the hope, because a lot of people are like, well, I want to be able to get back to Carson, you know, before 8 o'clock at night, which makes sense. So hopefully, you know, WASDOT will see the importance of that and grant us the grant. So that's kind of our main focus right now, is just to expand and then work with coordination with the other transit providers.
Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
What did you know? It's use your left hand
Okay.
is happiness month. How did you know? It's happiness month. You guys could do a gratitude and count.
I do have one quick question. Has there been any discussion of running any routes later at night?
Not at this point. We don't have dispatch. That would take additional staff, like office staff, in case something happened with the bus. And that's also kind of another issue for weekend service too, because we don't have staffing capacity at this point. I'm not saying it will never happen. We're trying to grow it each year and each biennium that we have the support of WASDOT grants, but as far as the grants that I just submitted, I did not, I mean, we could, you know, tweak some times, but at this point, 8 o'clock is about as late as we go.
I wish that we went later, because boy, does that campaign write itself.
Yeah,
Go have a drink.
right.
Yeah.
To the question, Mary?
Well, I just want to know, could you do a whole loop, like from Stevenson to the Dells and then back over the Bridge of the Gods to Stevenson? Or is it that coordinated, or, because I told somebody that the other day and she said, no, you're wrong. And I had thought I was right, and she checked on her magic machine and she couldn't find a connection. So, but it does provide a loop that you could continuously go around.
Continuously.
Oh, like if you started in Stevenson.
You'd have to do the transfers.
Well, I know you would have to do the transfers, but you could do a whole loop, like a day loop. And
There's one section you would have to, there's one section on SR 14 where you would have to travel on I-84, but in the same direction. And that actually, that small section there misses Lyle. So the Lyle community, it's not an incorporated city, but they're really interested in getting transit to them. So Klickitat County is the Link Public Transit in the Dells. Wasco County has provided them with match money for a grant that they have submitted to provide that service. So we'll see. That could be that small section could be filled in as soon as next July 2025.
Okay, I thought so you have to kind of come over the Hood River and then go to the Dalles and come back and then build it the loop. But
Okay.
yeah,
I was
soon you'll be able to do the Lyle. Poor Lyle, they're totally cut off.
Is there anything that as a city or as a council we can do to help? Because I'm a fan of the idea of public transit, expanding that. I just don't know what we.
How much money do you have?
That's what their response would be. That's why I didn't ask that.
That's like, I'm not asking that.
Letters of support, which you probably already got.
Okay.
So letters of support are great.
Sure.
Providing those partnerships and those organizational connections sometimes is really, really helpful. So if we're thinking about the travel trainer and you're thinking about, gosh, you know, does the travel trainer have an into this organization that we work with really closely? That's always something that you can bring to our attention, because a lot of times we're cold calling on certain doors. The connectivity with the business community is always great. You know, we have that through the chamber. And I know Sophie, you know, has worked on that, those kinds of programs before, but like the program that Emily mentioned, the Downtown Pass program, that's something that's really exciting. So for the Dells, it's a great relationship because they're providing us with riders and we're providing them with passes. So we worked it out. Columbia Area Transit does something different in the downtown Hood River section, but there's also
sorry, to that point, Hood River only just gives away like 100, is that right?
I don't think that they have, I don't know if they have a limit.
So my thought is it wouldn't cost you very much, and it'd be a big shining star to basically donate passes for anyone who can use them to commute. I'll bet that would be a really big bang for not very many bucks. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Something to consider.
Something to get people thinking.
How has your work been with the Forest Service Scenic Gorge?
Great. Yeah, we work really closely with them, especially with the Dog Mountain Shuttle. So every year, and that, you know, initially, I mean, Sophie remembers this, it was the county, sheriff, you know, first responders, it was a WashDOT, the Forest Service. There were a lot of people in the room trying to figure out how to mitigate the congestion and the safety hazards at Dog Mountain. And so the shuttle wasn't just, you know, like thought about, you know, and came to pass. It took a lot of work to get to launch that shuttle, to get it on the road, and then eventually to have Columbia Area Transit take it on, because as Sophie said, you know, they don't operate during weekends. So that's a lot of extra staff and extra money. Columbia Area Transit operates on weekends. So it's not, you know, so the efficiencies there are really great. They're already going through Cascade Locks. They're already coming from Portland to Cascade Locks, and then they go over, you know, then they meet up with the bus that's going across to Dog Mountain. So it's you know, it really is, we can find those efficiencies by sharing the load.
I would love to see the local shuttle. One thing I was thinking about when earlier this year, because my car wasn't working, so I had to walk everywhere, and I was injuring because of my disability, my joints are easy to injure. So I was having trouble walking everywhere. So if there was just a shuttle doing like a 30-minute loop, I would use that all the time to go to the grocery store or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we've gotten feedback about, and that I can see it as an important feature to offer our local residents. Because not everyone needs to leave town. Right. You know, they need to get from Carson to North Bonneville, or they, you know, whatever it is. So we want to be able to provide that.
Great. Thanks again.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you for your help. Well,
All right, next up is a public hearing on the 2025 proposed budget. For a public comment, we'd like to keep this to comment. If you do, as a member of the public, would like to come and ask some questions, staff would welcome that opportunity. But if you have some comments on the budget that's been presented, we will address those comments when we do another round. So I'd like to open up the public hearing at 6:55. Staff report.
Staff report. So you all opened up a conversation with the public, or at least the administration opened up a conversation with you all and the public at the end of September with the proposed budget for 2025. That budget has been out there for almost a month now for review and comment. It was prepared at your direction to be balanced in the way it was prepared, and that's what it was. You had that report from the last time. So looking to hear those comments on that, looking to hear your comments, looking to hear your questions, and with the goal of understanding what would need to change for the next time you see this and the next time the public sees it before it's adopted, which needs to be by the 31st of December.
All right, any comments?
Any comments from council?
Public first. Comment?
I think one of the things that our city, we're always talking about getting people to spend their money here. And I think one of the things that brings people to a community is trees, your landscaping. I think there's a lot of money to be made in landscaping in the sense that if somebody wants to sees your community and it's nice and green, especially during the summer, and they see shade and a place to sit, that will also entice them to spend some money in the downtown area or in other areas. And our downtown is not huge, so I think the thing that would make it enticing is trees and the different kind of beautification program, I guess I'm trying to say. I think spending money on those things would make people spend money on other things here in our community. And I have always said that we do need some kind of program to move people around in our community. And many moons ago, I did propose that when the ships come in, that we have for rent golf carts down at the port. And then they don't have to walk uphill because apparently most of these ships bring people who are gray-haired. And they don't want to walk very far. So you know, public-private partnership or whatever, but maybe an opportunity to make some money, but to also move people around our community. So just a thought. Our community is not large, but I think there was a study at one time that people didn't want to walk more than 65 feet from their cars. So I suspect walking from the port to downtown is more than 65 feet. So just a way to move people around the community, and that just a thought. I know it's always comes down to money, but also you want people to feel happy when they're in your community and de-stressed, and greenery always makes people de-stress.
Thank you. A little streetcar.
Yes, streetcar.
That'd be a good project for Pat Elma down at the port.
Karen, did you have a comment? All right, is anybody in the gallery?
Close that to make the screen bigger for you all. Let me get that back. No hands up.
All right, close the public hearing at 7 o'clock. Council, so should we go in order? Michael, you want to start? No. Okay, Pat.
You know, just in reading through it a couple of different times now, and there's a lot to digest, and I think a lot of good work went into parts of it. I guess the operative word was parts of it, but and one of the comments I read in there was if we were to finance the strategic plan, we'd be short money. And then some other comments I heard last meeting was, did we ever have in other words, we have some new council people here and stuff. The thing that struck me is because money probably is going to be tight because of the sewer bills and everything going up in our debt, it's referenced in here. there might be wise at some point to go back to basics, like, and I know it's too late to do a zero-based budgeting process where you start from the ground up. But we never really have talked about as a council, about what we each individually, what we feel our citizens that we represent, what they're looking for in a city. You know, we've never really had that kind of conversation where you build a budget out of that.
That's what this whole process is, sir.
I know, so, well, it's pretty crammed together, but so, and I'm not trying to, this isn't a negative here that I'm saying, but, so really so anyway, those are just some random thoughts. But, and if we look at, if I listen, when I talk to community members and stuff, I think they're more, it seems like we've spent a lot of staff time and stuff on the bigger projects, on the sometimes that go somewhere or they don't go somewhere. And that does eat up a lot. They're expensive because staff time is expensive because it's a huge percentage of the budget. And it seems like that really, if we just got more to basics and thought, what if we just built this budget from the ground up? What do we really need to function? You need a sewer system, you need police, you need your sidewalks maintained. And they just, and thought, well, can we afford that? And what's that budget gonna take to do that? Just a few other comments on the staff. I know that the staff is, I mean, it's a big percentage of the budget as well. And and this gets down to how efficiently the staff operate, how administratively, how tight we operate the city. And just over the years, my view is that the staff, especially the higher paying staff, aren't all that efficient a lot of times. And I just think there's some efficiencies there. For example, the fact we have an assistant, you folks have an assistant. I don't know if that position is necessary. If I'm dealing with an attorney, that attorney's emailing me. They don't have the assistant emailing me. So I think there's some cost savings in terms of looking at the staff expenses. So anyway, those are just comments I've heard, and some of my own comments and other comments I've just been talking to citizens just to kind of get the discussion going. And those are broad comments, of course, on broad general areas. Anyway, I'm done for now.
I think, and Ben, this will kind of be a reiteration for our conversation you and Honors and I had, but when I look at a budget, I look at revenues that you have to work with and then try to fit the expenditures, the needed expenditures and then the wanted expenditures into that revenue stream. One of the things that I would like to see is more detail in regards to what a particular, say, a particular expenditure is. What all is involved in that? What are the revenue streams? You may have one expenditure line item, but you may have 5 different revenue streams paying for that. You have multiple revenue streams paying for employees. You got to be paid out of the street fund, you got to be paid out of the sewer fund, the water fund. I mean, there's all those different revenue streams. And when you look at the overall salary for a given position, it's just a lump number. You don't know where that individual, where those revenue streams are paying that particular employee. And so those are the kinds of things that I like to see in a budget. Granted, I don't really understand how the software works, putting the budget together. When I was working with the sheriff's office, you know, our budget, the sheriff would come to me and his one requirement was, if I come to you on any given day, I need to know exactly where you are at on any given day. And so I couldn't use the county budget process, the Eden system, because it wouldn't give you that on a daily basis. And so I developed Excel spreadsheets so that I could track those figures. And I mean, especially during budget time, he'd come to me and say, commissioners want another $50,000 out of the budget, find it. And I'd look at him and go, yeah, right. And so I'd go in and I'd find it. Then he'd come back and say, they need another 75,000. I said, you're killing me. You know, what do you want? Because you anytime you do that, you squeeze the balloon. If you take it from here, it's gonna rob it from someplace else. So, I think more detail in the budget and how we do that, would benefit me greatly, because when you start looking at these different funds and what they actually are revenue streams for, dramatically changes how you look at a budget. But good job on putting this together. Thank you.
Lucy?
I'll pass for now.
Sure.
I'm going to agree with Dave on one thing. It's really hard for me to go through the budget and try to draw a line between where our source of revenues are and how those monies are being allocated to all the various budget items. Give you a perfect example on the one page here, 128, that talks about the items that were redlined out of the budget. 2 facility maintenance workers, where it says 185,000, okay, split 5 different ways, $70,000 is the total cost. Well, I don't know what that by itself means. And I don't know that doesn't mean that was the original revenue allocation for that from the general fund? Or was that from some other line item that, well, there's no money left on this particular line item, but there may be money left over someplace else in the revenue stream that nobody's actually looked at. I don't know where there's a total of revenues balanced against a total of expenditures to say that we had a $412,000 budget deficit. To stay on this one single point, I talked with Robert a little bit about, we had talked about using some of the revenue, I'm sorry, like my mind is slipping here for a minute. The revenue that we get from the hotels and on the
hotel tax.
Yeah, that money couldn't be, because it's supposed to promote tourism, and to Mary's point, provide things that would attract tourism to our community. That money couldn't be used to help things like beautification downtown area, couldn't be used to water at least, and cultivate the park strips, along Rock Creek that had been left, that couldn't be used. That money couldn't be used to hire these 2 facility maintenance workers and provide that service for us. The other issue that we're going to wind up kicking down the road, that I think we're going to wind up problem we had with the sewer system that we didn't deal with for 20 years, is the issue of stormwater management. And that was another item that was cut or redlined off the budget. I'm not quite sure why we need to spend necessarily $50,000 to do a survey on stormwater study, but I think that's something we need to address, and it is part of our strategic plan. So I think we need to find a way to come up with money to at least get that started.
Michael?
So I work in county or Clark County. And so I see different kinds of budgets because I'm in public health, so it's not the same exact thing, but I also understand, I'm in payroll, so I see the people that are split 5 ways and have every every day, there's 3 hours here, 2 hours there, but, you know, and so I know that grants are funding this portion of their pay and this, and I don't know what kind of reports you know, I don't know our software for splitting things out, here. I don't know what we use. I just know that kind of stuff, like it, to me, I guess that's not, those kind of details aren't what I'm looking for necessarily. Like that piece of it isn't as important to me specifically, but it is to other members of the council, which is fine. It's not necessarily to me. I'm looking at, you know, yeah, is the funding for the street fund coming from where and, you know, how much and what can we move around and I also, you know, I know that the staff puts a lot of time into making sure that we have those things allocated the right way, and we can only spend certain money certain ways, and that is just the way that it is. So some projects that we might want to see, or some projects that are funded totally by outside funds, aren't taking away from something else where we couldn't use that money for something else. So I think that understanding those ins and outs of the budget is important. But I think that the staff has done a pretty good job usually, especially when it comes to individual items. They explain that to us and kind of go over those things. So for me, I don't have as many more things that I need out of this, because that's not the way that I'm looking. That's not the details I'm looking for, but we're all looking for our own individual things. So for me, I'm good with what's reported. I always have questions about things that come up all the way through the year, and I voice those questions as they pop up. But overall, what's presented, I don't need those. This payroll for this person was funded by this ARP grant, this grant here, out of the street fund and out of the sewer fund. Like, I don't need those kind of details, because I know when you work for, especially a small community, you're going to do more than one thing in a day. You're just going to have to, and we are tracking that as a city, so they're paying out of the right funds. So those kind of, you know, we're doing it the right way. And I know they already are, so I'm not necessarily like, you know, because I don't oversee those people anyway, I'm not looking for those pieces. So that's, again, totally just me, but I know that this happens a lot of time into this, and I appreciate that it is explained when, hey, this can't be used for that. Like, it's not that we wouldn't want to, and it might make sense to us, but there's no precedence. We just can't do it. So I appreciate that from staff. So it's kind of where I am.
I think it's important to know too that certain revenues streams you can only use for certain things. Whether it be a grant or whatever. So that restricts how those revenue streams work in regards to the budget and everything. So.
There are a lot of programs that are basically standalone programs, yeah, that really shouldn't affect the overall budgetary process. You know, there are things like the sewer and water systems that are supposed to be their own entity, where they're basically the revenues from bills and so forth. They're supposed to cover those costs, those services, and so it's not detracting from the general budget. We're not having to add anything else to it. Streets, probably the same way. I know there's a number of revenue streams for the streets, but those are dedicated and allocated. We shouldn't have to worry about those as part of the budgetary process. But there's a lot of discretionary spending that it's really hard to follow the trail. You know, so I kind of go back to my question. You know, are some of the items that are on this this list of things that were redlined, have we truly proposed expenditures that have exceeded our total revenues in the amount of $400,000?
I believe so. Which are you looking at?
It's on page, well, on the PDF, it was on page 128.
Well, Chuck, keep in mind too, that all those red line things,
Yeah.
are different funds and different.
Well-
So some of those are dedicated revenue sources, some of them are not.
I'm not, yeah.
And so she's not talking about just the general fund budget. She's talking about all of the budgets here.
Okay.
And so you
I
need to,
think, but see, that was one of my points in talking about the two maintenance workers. I think that was originally proposed to come out of a general fund where we could take that out of the tourism tax.
yeah, but then you look at the stormwater utilities study,
That one's general fund, you know.
so, yeah.
But Chuck raises a good point in that somebody I talked to recently said there's one thing from going through a budget and it's like the accounting equation, when you studied accounting, or I did a long time ago, you know it, you can maybe get an A on a test for memorization, but then when it clicks, and that's called when, like, you can use the accounting equation to then solve problems. So when you get, and my point is they said, when you understand a budget good enough where you can make insights from it, to where you can then go, okay, this piece affects that, and it's ingrained in your head. So part of that, if we were to have, well, I have to have humility and think part of it's on me because I don't yet, that hasn't clicked yet, because there's a lot to digest and have it click. And you can say, well, then you gotta get with the program. Well, also, we're not paid to work full-time on this budget. So we're novices compared to the staff. So it takes, so part of it's on me, but that's the positive thing I'm gonna say here is that I think that what's tied in directly with this budget, whatever we approve by the end of the year, the good thing is we're gonna be hiring a city manager, and that city manager is gonna have insights themselves from their own experience, and they'll be able to come in because familiarity, a lot of times you don't see the forest through the trees. So I'm hoping that city manager can come in and say, well, hey, I see you're doing this way. Have you ever thought of doing it this way? Because when I worked in this other city, we did that and we saved 50,000 a year. And so those insights, I look at those two big tasks we have, approving this budget and getting a city manager, is integral and interrelated. Because they still get, when I look at the budget, part of what I think of is we're a very small town. And when I look at the population, so I look at this budget, the figures here, on one of the pages, we're $8 to $9 million, depending on how you're looking at it. And we're 1,600 residents, or we're 600 houses. And that's not all the revenues coming from there. But even geographically, we're very small. So so just like we're talking about the fire maybe changing how we work with the fire station and whether we contract with them and whether there's savings there, or whether the property that was purchased for the fire station is ever going to be used and that can be sold and maybe someday. So all the topics that we as a council debate are directly related to the budget. And I'm just hopeful that maybe, and I know that staff can get sensitive if I say, well, administratively, what can we do differently? But when I ran a business, it was always, there were two ways to make money: from the new revenue, and I know we're not in the business of making money, or fixing my mistake, or doing things a new way myself. What can I do differently that I've not thought of? And what am I missing? And that type of entrepreneurial thinking, I'm not saying doesn't exist here, because I think I've heard evidence that it does over time, being on the council. But what can we do to create efficiencies? And I know when people, so I don't know, for example, does a town our size need a full-time planner? Do we need, or can we farm, we're already farming some stuff out to the county. Can the county take over all our planning and we just contract with them for planning? I'm not trying to get rid of Ben's position, because Ben right now is doing a different job. So it doesn't mean, well, I'm trying to get rid of Ben, because Ben's already, Ben's versatile, can do different functions. So in some of these functions, is there cheaper ways to do it? And I don't know, and as we pay for the sewer system, and I'm almost done, we're kind of getting forced to have to be creative, I think, because of the expensive sewer system that we're paying for and the debt we have. So anyway.
Okay, so I want to chime in.
Okay.
We are dealing with a skeleton staff that is learning a budget on the fly.
Yep.
We presented a budget that included several on-deck projects with the anticipation that there was some nebulous numbers that we were going to wait to firm up because there was some numbers that were as we get closer to the end of the year. Staff has expressed a similar sentiment to what you are all saying. We are stretched thin now, expecting those numbers to come in and firm up and potentially knock loose some budgetary money and then turn around and push it back into these on-deck projects is asking a lot. They were asked to keep the lights on and make sure that the sewer plant worked, that everybody gets paid, that the city continues to run. They are an intermediate solution until we hire a city administrator.
Survival.
There is the complete, also an understanding that working in this way of not including these on-deck projects in a budget with no foreseeable, at this time, revenue to support them with an unbalanced budget doesn't make any sense. You asked for a balanced budget, you got the balanced budget. There are going to be, in this new nimble environment that we're working on, there is going to be budget amendments. Count on it. So it's not to say that we didn't get it right the first time. So now we're gonna bring it to you and try to rectify, right the ship. We are gonna have to be nimble. This is the first time since I've been sitting at this chair, that the budget has been this tight, where I walk out of here with just a pit in my stomach. So, and it has to do with that tsunami of that big blue blob that we saw last month, this insane amount of debt that's coming in. Staff is already looking at ways to massage. We were looking at development fees. We're coming out for different projects. We're coming out of the fund that those projects were going into. So if it was a street project, that development cost was coming out of street funds. Is it possible that money could come out of the general fund? So to free up some money in those different departments. So all that said is leading up to the point, city's running, budget is balanced. Don't go crazy on granularity. We are expecting to hire a very talented person that's going to help us free up some of those 50 guys back to where their comfort level is. Even though Ben has been crushing it, Anders crushing it, comfort level is definitely, we can see that. So keep all these things in mind. So, and the fact that we are running a city with down potentially a person and a half is an amazing testament to what our staff is capable of. So don't forget that part. So all of that said, have you heard enough?
I've heard.
I want Anders to chime in too.
So I've heard each individual council member talk, but I haven't heard the council's will on this. So there's talk about cutting staff. There's talk about cutting the amount we pay towards staff. Overall, there's talk about adding in staff for the facility maintenance workers. I'm sorry, clarity, administrative staff, cutting the costs that we pay to that. There's talk about adding facility maintenance workers as staff. There's talk about a stormwater study. There's public comment for beautification goals, and acknowledgement that you all need more context or education training on these topics, but those are all individual points. I don't know where to go with all of those things because those are individual and not you speaking as one.
So Ben, where do we go if we have questions about individual line items of things? You know, you and I and Anders talked about, you know, within the tourism fund. Okay, you've got $116,000 for the chamber consultant. You got SBA consultant of $84,000. You've got, SRGIC consultant, 75,000. You've got Main Street Program Coordinator for 75,000. And you know, I started looking at all that.
Oh, just for tourism, all of those ones are what are approved by the TAC committee. Those are the individual TAC contracts that are recommended each year by, they're applied for. They're recommended by the committee to council, and then council approves them. And so each one of those line items is an individual contract that is approved by the TAC committee, if that helps at least with those.
But how those individual line items increase the budget overall, the overall budget. You know, instead of having a $4.2 million budget, maybe some of these line items that are specific to this, now bump it up to a $6 million budget. And so my concern is, what is the real budget?
Well, it wouldn't exactly do that, because instead of it being spent, it would be a cash carryover reserve for that fund. And so it's still at the fund level, that amount is going to be the same, whether it's sent out as a contract or reserved for future expenditure.
If you're talking about the TAC.
Yeah, specifically.
Yeah. And so that's some of the case with the other funds too, is that you roll them up, and at the end of the day, if it's not spent here to perform this service, it's going to a different service, or it's being carried over as cash until the following year. We don't, you don't put a line item in and then print the money to pay for that. It's
Right, the color of money.
Yeah. It's still.
Yeah, okay. We haven't done it. Did honors has
Yeah, honors, I really would like you to chime in.
Yeah, totally. Oh, to answer a couple of questions that I've heard so far, both Dave and Chuck asked the question of the distribution of the utility maintenance workers that we cut. Utility maintenance workers, historically, we've split 50-50 their wages between parks and streets. Parks are general funds, streets are street funds. And so I think we've discussed how low the street fund is currently on funds. And then parks being general, that would come straight out of the general amount. Another question that I heard Chuck mention was like, where are we at as far as like that 400 whatever deficit piece? And really the big description to that better is in the essence of each fund, according to our financial policy, each fund is required to carry over 10% of its operating costs in O&M, the 10% of the operating and maintenance costs into the following year. And so that needs to be the ending balance in that fund after everything's spent out of it and after everything came into it. So that's really where that's what kind of makes the zero line, is like making sure that that reserve has been met. And so that's when Liana was going through and prepping this, that was the trigger that she used for each fund, except for the general fund. With the general fund having the biggest carryover all, but some of that is with the wastewater treatment plant not being finished yet. Needing to make sure that we finish paying for that was kind of some of the hesitancy in using that funds until that wastewater treatment plant is completed, was some of the discussions that she and I had in that. So again, as Scott mentioned, a big piece of what, as the wastewater treatment plant is completed, as revenues become more clear of what they are going to be for next year, as a carryover from this year's budget of what we don't spend, and so we actually have clear numbers for what we're starting with next year. As each of those things become more clear, we'll have the ability to, if we realize we have more funds, that's where a budget amendment can take place, as Scott mentioned, and we go, okay, these are the projects that we want to add now because we realize we were very conservative in the amount that we budgeted, because we needed to make sure we passed a budget that we could fund, and what opportunities might there be now to add to it. So those are the main points that I really wanted to add.
Anders, could I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
The city lodging tax that we collect, has that been under or over budgeted in the past? Haven't we had a fairly sizable reserve carryover on that each year?
Yeah, so absolutely. We have
So, I was gonna say, because of my question and whether we could use some of that money for, you're talking about the utility workers to help with the maintenance of the city.
The TAC funding is very rigid on its usage,
Yeah.
and it's
Can't use that
money,
power, though.
it's money that comes in as a direct result of the taxes that our lodging facilities pull in. And then that provides a bucket of money that applications can be made against, so different, fill out an application and come to a committee, and the committee is typically comprised, or most majority comprised of the entities that produced those taxes. And then, so that money is available to people that put in an application.
Okay, but the city
It
put
can
in-
be used for parks and stuff.
Okay,
like
well,
that.
the city could put an application in, couldn't it?
We've done applications in the past, such as last year, in 2023, we funded the wayfinding signs, so the new wayfinding signs that went up, funded, because those are leading people to, our businesses and things like that. So that was an application. So yes, absolutely, the city can put in an application, and it goes before the TAC committee, and then anything the TAC committee recommends to council has the ability to approve for funding. And part of the TAC committee's job, in more the staff role on that TAC committee, is to make sure that the application meets the requirements of TAC funding.
Anders, can you share real quick what we were talking about the other day with hanging baskets in Leavenworth as an example?
I've heard that example.
So 3 weeks ago, I attended a financial training with MRSC, and we spent a significant period on TAC funding, because it is this pretty crazy regulated amount of monies. And so for several years, Leavenworth was funding their hanging baskets, downtown corridor and tourist city, right? Clearly that is there designed for tourism. However, JLARC came in and when they audited those funds, they said, no, this isn't for a specific event designed. So your general populace is getting just as much benefit as whatever. It's not necessarily just for tourism. We're going to actually deny that it was actually TAC funding. And when that happens, the city actually has to come up with the money and pay it back from whatever fund, most often general fund, and put it back into the TAC fund. And so that those funds can make sure that, because it's a misappropriation essentially. And so it has to then be correctly appropriated. And so that was what happened with the hanging baskets there. And again, the guidance was, if it's a specific event that you can, and
Change flowers.
Part of the reporting is you have to be able to identify how many people are staying in motel hotel beds due to the funding you're doing, is part of it.
So because of this, we have, the lodge is one of the largest lodging facilities around. So because of that, last I heard, by populace or per capita, Skamania County, or Stevenson, city of Stevenson, is the second largest bucket of money in the state. You could just mainly due to the size of the lodge. So a town our size with a producer that size does generate a tantalizing amount of money. And there's always this, how can we get a bigger piece of that? The scrutiny on the way we use those funds is very strict. So it's an easy thing to say, what about all that money? There's nothing to see there. So we gotta play by the rules. We gotta keep very, very strict regulation on how that money is spent.
And to
But we
add,
love for people to think of creative ways to do it. I mean, we want to award that money for events that are gonna bring more, I know it's not time for me to talk, but I can't help it. So, that's what we need, is people to come up with these really good ideas on how to pull additional people here. We wanna do that. It only creates more revenue. for us.
What's your name, ma'am?
What?
What's your name?
State your name.
I'm sorry, my name's Kara Ellen, the general manager of Skamania Lodge.
Same.
Loud and proud. Gentlemen.
Um,
And I'm on the TAC fund committee.
All right, and you got another comment, Anders?
yeah, just to check, and the trainers did mention pretty specifically that using TAC funds for personnel, city personnel, is definitely on the no-no list. So,
Okay.
And again, one of my main concerns, because salaries and benefits play such a big part of our budgets. When I see a fully funded position, and then I see all of these breakouts of salaries and benefits in different areas of the general fund budget. And I'm going, well, why have we got all this money down here when we've got fully funded positions up here? And so how that all interrelates to me is really critical when the 2026 budget comes up.
To, yeah,
So honored, we've heard it a couple of times, trying to wrap the heads around how those salaries are paid. So I don't know if that's a pie chart or, you know, how we can try to find it to, help visualize.
no, I mean, I can produce a report and show what the 2024 salaries have been. Would you guys prefer a overall breakdown of all salaries and how they've hit? And that's essentially what's in the budget. Or are you wanting each individual position and where its breakdown is?
Is this directed to me, Anders?
You're one of the people who asked for it. I'm not.
How about if I come in and talk to you and Ben a little bit more offline? And
I'll do that. And if you could email Ben or me beforehand so that I could prepare those reports, that way we could talk about them, I'd be happy to do so.
yeah, let's do that.
How about another idea? It was the two of you that asked about it. How about if the two of you come in at the same time?
We could do that.
All right, Anders, Ben, how are we looking?
the last comment I'll make is to Scott's point. I understand the circumstances that we're working under right now, and I think the work that's been done is a lot. I appreciate it, and I think we can definitely work on a status quo basis until we have the opportunity to do more.
And we tried to work this into a mission statement where being nimble is something that we need to be prepared to do. This notion that the budget is closed and you did it wrong if you have to come back and talk about it again. No, that's not it at all. That's we're figuring out, we're coming in very conservatively with the idea that, oh, there's some money, let's spend it. So
I can tell you when we were doing all of those cuts in the early 2000s for the sheriff's budget and all the county budgets. It was with the understanding with the county commissioners that there would be amendments to the budgets as we moved forward. So
What we've done in years, in just a few years that I've been on the council, we've done a good amount throughout the year. It's based on that's coming in. They must come in this time change, whatever it is.
You don't budget for a grant until you have the grant in hand,
Right,
because if you give us the authority to spend the money, but then the grant doesn't come through, that authority to spend it is there, but the revenue is not going to be there. So we don't budget for a grant, for example, until.
Yeah.
and you don't expend and the expenditures as well.
Yeah.
That was mine.
Kara got 30 seconds. What do you got, Mary?
Well, I just wanted to, thank you. Well, I can save it for the ending.
No, unless you want to wait till the public comments at the end.
I will do it now. I would like you all to think about a possible new revenue stream. I have proposed it at the county level, and that is carbon credits and carbon offsets. And I've been doing research on this issue, and there's money to be made in trees, especially mature and old growth trees. We do have some woods in the urban growth area. And I don't know, as I said, I've done the research, there's sites we can go to and that, but that might provide some extra revenue for that. Julie May once had an idea this is going to tourism and where you can spend money. She wanted to do a seasonal event every season. And one of her really great ideas, I thought, was the fire pit thing that she proposed downtown, where there would be fire pits everywhere and, or, you know, fires where, during the fall when it was raining and bad. And then during the spring, we had the rainy, I think you might remember the
Really,
rain
Mary?
thing.
So,
I mean, there, and that could be, if it's seasonal, you could spend the tourism money.
Absolutely. And she can provide an application for those funds when her idea is.
That was many
finalized.
moons ago and
Understood.
Julie's moved on, but you guys are here.
Alrighty, who is going to be bringing us, staff, talking about the, transportation benefits.
Transportation Benefit District, just close the book on the last one. I'm hearing from you all that if you see the same budget again at the next meeting, you're okay with that. If we end up making changes at the staff level, we'll explain those to
Based
you.
upon your new figures.
Yeah.
We have a workshop on this coming up next month, right? And that's
14th.
on the,
14th.
okay, so we'll be discussing.
Yeah.
again then. Okay.
Transportation Benefit District has been established. You have assumed its powers. You are at the stage where you're deciding whether to send a proposition to the voters of the city of whether to increase the sales tax. 3 cents on every $10 that's sold. This is the shell game that you've talked about several times, where that's going to increase the budget for the street fund, and that will allow you to decrease the general fund amount that you send to the streets and divert it to the sewer fund. So the resolution here is presented. The resolution includes the language of the ballot title and the ballot description. Those both need to be presented by the city attorney. Both of these were presented by the city attorney. And so this is to you to see if you want to ask the voters whether they're okay with an additional tax.
But didn't we also talk about that a great deal of those taxes generated would be
Yes.
over and above what would be generated by local shoppers?
Right. Let me try to explain it this way. So, right, the sewer fund revenues will remain static because you're going to divert the money to the sewer fund. The ratepayers of the city are no longer going to pay those rates. The diverted funds are going to pay them instead. Those diverted funds are generated by a much broader tax base than just those ratepayers are. And much of that tax base is going to be out of town tourists, people coming here, not those ratepayers. So the ratepayers have a net gain because of the amount of tourists that are coming, or non-residents that are spending money here. The details of this funding mechanism are that it's can only be for a 10-year period. You can then renew it for another 10-year period to continue that revenue stream. When we crunch the numbers or do the estimates, that's $27,000 a year going into the sewer fund, or that our sewer ratepayers no longer.
Say that again.
27,000 a year,
27,000?
or 270,000 a year.
27,000 a year times 10.
Is only going into the sewer fund?
That,
No.
Okay, this is where I'm getting confused.
that's a question that I had, because I was led to believe in our previous discussions that that amount was per year, not per 10 years.
What I was told was that it was over the full 10-year period. I didn't go back and verify that information because that was what was given to me and working on other things.
So I've done about 3 days of research on this And I don't see where a transportation benefit district can utilize its funds for street and sewer.
And it doesn't.
It doesn't.
So
Instead of taking money out of the general fund to provide for those things.
But your 0.3% tax is coming off of your transportation benefit district. You are, that is what it is for. And so therefore, those funds that you're talking about moving have to be used for transportation related
streets.
So what they're doing right now is they're supplementing the street fund with general fund money. This would bring, this tax would go straight into the street fund and eliminate the general fund money from coming in. That money would then go to the sewer. out of
The general fund money would be
So
used.
the general fund money would no longer be what is paying the street fund. It would be going that way. This money's coming straight in the street fund and staying in the street fund.
Okay, so my question is then, why would, for last year's sales, why would $310,187 not go to our sewer fund instead of 27,000 or whatever?
Say that again. So
He's
is
saying
it,
that more money's coming in, where the total amount coming in.
You had, let me,
Lucy's pretty good with the numbers. What do you got, Lucy?
We did the math on it before. What was the total sales
Yeah. listen,
total
that's
sales,
90 minutes.
total sales
per year?
for last year, for 23, was $103,395, or $103,395,552. 0.3% of that is $310,187.
Yeah.
That's for 1 year.
Yeah, that's how we got the 270. So that was per year.
Per
The
year,
270
not for 10 years.
Was supposed to be per year.
The what?
Yeah,
We're saying per year, not for 10 years. Yeah, the 270
270,000
was per year, not
per year, not for 10 years. Yeah.
It was the understanding we had.
Yeah.
Ran the numbers.
and that's going into the sewer.
we'll verify that. And because again, this needs to be proposed by the city attorney.
And
We're
it's
gonna get that.
That per year is going into the
It would
sewer
go
fund.
to offset raising the rates. That was what we talked about. I need
Yes.
to use Mr.
Okay.
And
This is,
you've already adopted your sewer rate schedule for the next 5 years. And in there, it has the either or the or. And so it's either this, if this tax that we're talking about isn't passed, or it's gonna be less if that is passed. And so that's where the, that savings is something real that's, you can have a conversation with the voters about if you send it to them.
Okay.
I have a question. When I read this, is to authorize a sales and use tax to fund street repairs, pedestrian safety, snow plowing, comma, reduce sewer utility rates and generate revenue by establishing. Okay, so in reading this, it looks like that 0.3 will be used for all those things, right? Am I missing something? Or will it be used solely for the sewer? And I'm just trying to say is if I'm confused, I think other people reading this are gonna be confused. Because
The 0.3 is used for the streets. It has the additional effect of freeing up money currently used for the.
It's a
streets
yes
that we
and.
use for-
Yeah, it's absolutely a yes and. Yes, it's funding these
So
things
do we-
and it's reducing the,
Do we need to modify the motion that's on?
yeah, you can see where the motions, do you get, am I the only one that reads that away? Because I think, well, you're adding things to what the intent was. It looks to me when I read it. Maybe it's just.
We know how the money is going to be used and we know how we're going to allocate funds from the general fund. Do we need to include things like reducing sewer utility rates and generate revenue? Do we need to include that as part of our motion?
the,
Thing is, you can't, because it's a transportation improvement district.
Right.
And they can only be used for those items.
Yeah, so
How you offset that from what Michael's saying
it's a separate issue.
is a separate issue because you're told.
so that you can't is something that propositions require whether you can or you can't. require your city attorney to evaluate it and propose something. Your city attorney has proposed this language.
Okay.
And so he's believing that you can.
It doesn't say we're using the 0.3 on this to pay sewer costs. It says we're using it to reduce sewer utility rates
Okay.
by freeing up the other money.
Right.
Do we need to change this from $270,000 per year for a 10-year period? Okay, I'd like
How
to,
about generating approximately $270,000
a year, yeah,
Yeah, instead of, we can remove the
okay,
10 years.
all right. I'll make a
And
motion.
can I just offer to move for approval pending the attorney's verification of the dollar amount?
Okay.
Either,
I think that dollar amount is great.
Okay. I will make a motion to adopt a resolution 2024-444, providing for a ballot proposition to be submitted to the qualified electors of the city on February 11th, 2025, to authorize the sales and use tax to the funds street repairs, pedestrian safety, snow plowing, reduce sewer utility rates, and generate revenue by establishing a 0.3% sales tax rate within the Stevenson Transportation Benefit District, ending after 10 years, generating approximately $270,000 per year. Pending
city attorney verification.
city attorney's final approval.
Nice. Nice breath control. That's good. We have a first, second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, next steps on that one are to verify the appropriate dollar amounts, get this over to the auditor's office so that they can prepare that for the February election. And then we have the opportunity also to appoint for and against committees so that the packet has arguments and rebuttal arguments for those two. And so that'll be the next thing that's on your agenda there. I've approached a couple of you about sitting on those committees, waiting for confirmation on that, and need to work out whether, if the council were to appoint a council member, whether they have to do that as a citizen, as an individual, and not as in their official capacity as a council. So.
Well, but then also on the board itself, right?
Yeah. So, looking into that, but expect me to reach out for those verifications there about it and try to flesh out what those for and against committees, who sits on those for and against committees.
All right, so before we go too much further, the voucher approval is imminent. Ben has changed the way you would like these looked at. Is that what I? Tell us more about that, because if you want to take a look at those, this is the time, because we've got the stack here. I've got the sign, the sheets here to sign, so we're getting close to the end of the week.
Right, yeah, we had the financial training that was put on that we attended, and there was talk about verifying, in your capacity, you're auditing the city's expenditures and verifying that they're going to the appropriate place. When you see a voucher from an outside vendor, you have a lot of detailed information. When you see the check run for payroll, there's less information. And so closing the gap there to provide you information to perform that oversight role has been done in this voucher packet. There's an additional page that has the position and the amount earned so that you can cross-reference back to the payroll sheet. We're providing that so that you can perform that function. We're providing that with some reservation that information will be weaponized. There's concern about that from the city staff. So I can't control how you use the information. I can plead with you to treat staff well. And I can inform you that when staff is on their heels or overly anxious or feeling that like there's hostility, that impacts their ability to perform their duties. And none of us want us to perform our duties at a lesser capacity for the people that we serve. So
I'm confused what you're talking about. Weaponized what?
And again, I'm trying to figure out what us knowing what salaries are. I guess, yeah, I'm a little bit confused too.
salaries are a charged topic. And so the staff is concerned that that's a charged topic for the public, and that bad faith actors will use that information to charge up the public to achieve some individual ends that those bad faith actors might want to achieve. I can't.
Is that because of how much money a person makes or something like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and that colors the way that the public interacts.
What does that have to do with the vouchers, though? I guess that's where I'm getting confused.
Their
Well,
salaries are on the
it's
vouchers.
how the information is passed on to us, because we now know how much an individual makes.
By position.
Which I already know how much individuals make because I know what the budget's in the budget, so.
Yeah.
I'm just used to, I mean, my wife was a nurse up at OHSU. People can look up what her retirement is now. School teachers a lot. The community knows what they make. I think we should have an educated society and everybody knows, I mean, we work for the public and they pay us. I don't see how that can be weaponized. I just think that's a lot of rhetoric over nothing, what I think, because every citizen here has a right to know in the city what each of you all make, and that's just the way it is. And
I believe that too, Pat, and that's why it's in your packet. You're asking me to invalidate the feelings of my staff, and I'm not going to invalidate their feelings. I'm going to plead with you to not weaponize the information that you.
but how would you weaponize it? That's why I'm confused. That's why none of this makes sense, and I don't need to talk about it anymore, but I'm just very confused by that type of talk.
Okay. Ben's made the point of the staff. There was some concern. I think that we've heard his concern, staff's concern. That's why we have additional information in here. Take a look at the vouchers, and then if you're comfortable with the way the vouchers are presented, sign the sheet. Informational items are in your packet. Staff report, Ben.
Starting with interim city administrator duties, 17 days in to the job now. So the first week, well, it's been 17 days with spotty staff, with planned trainings, with planned time off. And so including being down a person within City Hall, we've been down other people in City Hall, and we're making that work. Today, we were without our cash handlers. So developing the SOP for public that came in to pay was to guide them to the website so that they can pay online, to apologize that we can't take the payments, ask for understanding. If somebody came in to pay with cash, then we're not touching your cash. We want to keep your cash as safe as possible, and that's with you until we have our cash handlers in. So we did have a sheet to write down that somebody came in to pay so that they weren't going to be penalized or that their water wasn't going to be cut off in case that was a repercussion. And then we were able to accept checks and give them a stamp. We received your check for processing later. So little things like that have been things that we've been overcoming, that being down a person in the finance department and the cash handling department is another issue that we've been looking at and dealing with. So first exercise we did as an all City Hall basis was to list out all the systems that we have in place and all the systems that need checks and balances, so that since we're down a person, all those checks and balances are occurring appropriately. And since we're down a person in the finance realm, in the cash handling realm, especially those are done appropriately. So we got that worked out. We got the system worked out to be able to do that. And that feels good to get the understanding of that. And then I've been turning the focus then from that into looking at the budget more, looking at ways where we might be able to trim some costs, starting subscription services that we have. There's a lot of technologies that we have, and how many of those do we need to carry forward? And so that may be a way that we're able to free up money in the budget to achieve some of the other important things that are on that list but not in. We've been talking to Carolyn about how to ensure that the things that the public works that really seem like needs for the public works department that are currently out can get in, or the ones that are in, if they can go. And then exploring some of the other ways to make those budget modifications that are going to allow us to achieve more of those things that are currently out of the budget. So we do hope to be able to present something to you on that. We are down a staff member in City Hall, and so there is a hell of a lot to do. Told you at the start, the hair was going to be on fire, and it is on fire. We're also preparing to be down another City Hall staff member starting in or around January. Can't predict when that will be. We'll be missing one for about a month at that time. So we're looking into temporary solutions for that, either hiring directly an additional staff member to cover that, or using a temp agency to provide coverage for that too. So you'll have a better situation report on that at the next meeting. Hope to have the pathway figured out for that. Also ensuring that we have coverage for all the grant reporting and reimbursement requests that are out there. Much of those duties has fallen to Carolyn, because most of the grants reporting and reimbursements that we have right now are in public works and the sewer system. So Carolyn's doing more of that she wasn't doing before, and that's appreciated. Meeting prep, happy to have this meeting with you guys. It's been a fairly light agenda. Of course, they all go as long as they go, but we're not seeing any pressing items for the meeting on the 24th. And so the mayor has canceled that. I do hope to make that more of a trend, to be able to have conversations with you all between the meetings, answer your questions, so that the meetings, instead of using meetings with all of us together to address questions. And I'm happy about that. We've had more meetings this year in 2024 than you guys usually have. I think 2 years probably. So let's see. The other thing, the wrap up from the fire meeting that you all had, the joint meeting with the fire district, working on those outcomes for that. So we've got a new chief there, and seeing you, Johanna.
Hi, yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I just need to know the voucher approval. I'm not sure who did what.
Oh,
I don't think we did it.
I was just setting the stage that
Oh,
there
okay.
might be, that wanted to look a little deeper into the packet, that this would be the time to start working on it. No, we haven't I haven't called for a vote yet.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed. Thanks.
Good. Yeah. So working on those outcomes from that meeting, the one that's gotten the most attention from me so far is trying to set up that structure for what a new interlocal agreement between the city and the fire district might look like, benchmarking it to those crawl, stand, walk, run phases, so that you all can have a conversation with the district at the next joint meeting in December. So working on that. I'm sure I'm missing other city administrator-y things that I've been working on. In the planning world, that work continues to carry on. So the periodic update grants that we talked about before for the critical areas, your habitat protections, we're due to amend those in 2026 or by the middle of the year in 2026. Department of Commerce is giving us $10,000 a year for the 2 fiscal years between then and now. And so that contract will be coming to you at the next meeting, hopefully, and satisfying that contract. Got a general understanding with the Community Development Department for Skamania County and the planner for North Bonneville. They will try to pool those grant funds together to achieve some common functions that need to occur for all of us. So make good use of that, use our partners in the region to move forward. The boilerplate contract for the undergrounding plan you all approved tonight. And so thank you for facilitating that. We should have an agreed upon scope of work with DNR very soon. We've gone through 3 versions of the scope of work, and I think that that'll be the last one and be able to wrap that up, get it to the mayor for his signature, put it back on the agenda for your ratification there. And permit volumes remain fairly low, though Chinadir next phase is starting to pick up a little bit. So expect more of those in 2025.
Carolyn, I had a question. The sewer, you're going out for outreach to the public on the sewer thing, and when will that be coming back for the council?
We haven't developed the outreach plan for that. That's been one that's shifted to the side for everything else.
So it's okay.
Yeah.
And report.
End of report.
Water, I'll kick off with water. We submitted our lead and copper inventory yesterday. That was a huge effort by the Public Works Department. So be stoked for us to get that done. I don't know that other municipalities. I'll be really curious what percentage of water purveyors in the US as a whole met that deadline, because it's a pretty significant ask.
What's it for?
What?
Tell us more.
The lead and copper inventory. EPA has, I think I've spoken of it before, but just as a reminder, EPA has required all water purveyors to identify any lead in their system. So main lines as well as service lines. So that would be privately owned sides of their service lines as well as the public side. So public water lines have main like distribution lines. Where it breaks off to go to a home, the public, at least in our system, we have responsibility for the pipe from the main line to the water meter. And then it's on the property owner to construct and maintain the pipe from the meter to their home. So EPA said, not only are you responsible, a water purveyor, of knowing what your lines are, you actually need to know what all your service lines are for everybody else. So we have 897 water services that we identified. And we put out a survey. So there were some community members who actually responded to the survey and told us what their side was. We used as-built to fill in some of those gaps, and then also and then we went out and visually inspected. So Public Works crew inspected over 115 service lines in the last 3 weeks, which is outstanding. It just kind of reiterated and reconfirmed that the policy that we're working towards of relocating meters to within the public right of way as a priority and as a good policy. It reconfirmed that. We identified 138 randomly. So part of this survey, one of the things that they allowed you to do, they said you don't have to do all 897, but you need to do some percentage to demonstrate that
if you, by statistical analysis, if you have that percentage that none of those are lead, then we'll go ahead and say your entire system is not lead. So for us, it was 20%, and 20% ended up being 112. So we randomly generated, and they said it has to be random. You can't go and like spot pick your service lines. So we had 138 that we randomly generated of the ones that we didn't know. And of that 138, 26 we weren't even able to inspect because they were behind a fence. They were in someone's backyard. They were in their flower, in their flower bed. They were guarded. It was guarded by dogs. So super frustrating to not have access to our infrastructure. But our PFAS testing kit arrived, and so we'll be sampling next week for that. I know that's something that folks have been interested in as well. It's actually in that cooler over there. Don't open it. It's very high, very, very sensitive. I guess you can't even wear like a Gore-Tex shirt or else you can contaminate the sample when you're taking it. So it has a very specific set of guidelines for that sample. So that's water. Wastewater, the treatment, I'm sorry?
I want to just interrupt you for context to when big things happen in America, big things end up being required of us. So a big thing happened in Flint with the lead poisoning that happening there. And so the EPA is now requiring big things of us, like this monumental effort that we just killed it on. Big things are happening in the PFAS world. So big things are now required of us with this testing.
And then that gets sent in and then it's analyzed by somebody. There's a procedure for that, and then they analyze and they give us, you folks, a report, and we'll get a report to the city and then we'll go.
Yeah. I think as I've shared before, like we're very, very, very low risk, which is why we haven't, we asked for our sample kit over a year and a half ago, and they're just now getting it to us because they've said, you don't really have any of the things that we're looking for. So I don't expect it to come back badly, but you never know. So wastewater treatment plant continues to advance. They're focusing on electrical, however, that automatic transfer switch that everyone's been waiting for with bated breath is supposed to be here next week. So that should kick off another phase of construction and hopefully get us moving on at a quicker pace than we've been. Our pump station project, both Fairgrounds and Kanaka pump stations are in operation, and they're working on the Cascade pump station replacement now. Let's see, for streets, our resurfacing is all completed. So next step for that is to be requesting reimbursements for the projects that we were funded for. Our First Street project is well underway. They're pouring the outlook next week. So big thanks to Lucy, Michael, and Chuck, who came down and did a tour. Demonstrating your interest in the project is really good for morale of city staff as well as like contractor. It's nice. I think they like seeing officials come down and do the official thing. And so thanks for that. Now that the rain is upon us, we can replace the trees that we identified as part of the street tree management plan. And then I don't know if everyone remembers, it seemed like so long ago, but last summer we asked folks to weigh in on what sorts of trees they wanted to see as the replacement for some of these that were sick or severely damaged. So now that we have rain and we don't have to pay to irrigate them, those will be going in here probably in November. Sidewalk panels have been replaced just in the last couple of weeks. These were identified as part of the 2022 trip hazard study. And there's a few others in there, water breaks that we had, some water services that we need water services to put in. A big win that I see. We've had trick or treat the last few years that I've been here, and the last few years they always ask like, oh, can we use the sidewalk on 2nd Street? And I have just cringed every time I get asked because the street remains open, and yet you have darkness, you have children, you have candy, they're all in black. Like it's just it's my worst nightmare that situation, but SDA, and the chamber went to WashDOT and said, hey, can we close the road? And they said, you can, but you need to have insurance. And, the city was able to partner with them, and, so they were able to piggyback on our insurance, because we identified ourselves as sponsors of the event. WashDOT said, oh, yeah, the city's, city's gonna sponsor it, then yeah, we'll let you close the road. So super stoked about that.
The insurance partnership is a partnership, so our permitting process requires them to have insurance. WashDOT requires them to have insurance, and then also a vehicular insurance. Their insurance didn't have vehicular, ours does. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Who's gonna pay for the actual closure of the road and the deputies and everything?
I don't know that, I mean, I know the city's never paid for the deputies to close, it'll be the same process as when they do the parades. It's the same route, it's the same.
Well, that's paid, that's not. Somebody had better figure that out, because I can guarantee you that the sheriff's office isn't gonna do it for nothing.
Well, we've never paid for a parade, so I don't know why we would be paying for this.
Well, I think the fair house.
Okay, so I guess
Through the county.
Yeah, our right of way use permit says you coordinate with EMS and the sheriff's office.
Okay,
So,
all right.
yeah, city staff time is used during city staff hours to put up barricades. And then the applicant will pull those into place. So we don't have anyone on staff or called out for those events. And then I go as a salaried employee and I help pull them all back, because that's what I do for the parades as well. People are afraid to touch going with barricades, which I'm okay with. Don't touch me. Equipment, our sweeper was sold at auction yesterday for more than we thought it was going to be. So that is exciting. And then the county came through and provided us an invoice. So we were able to pick up a surplus dump truck from them. So also good news on the equipment front, because we had some money from state treasurer loan to for this equipment, and we had to use it by the end of the year. We weren't quite sure that the dump truck was going to be able to come through for us.
How much was that?
$15,100. No updates for parks, no updates for staff. A miscellaneous item related to the Chinnery subdivision. I sent them a letter 30 days with a 30-day deadline, essentially, which expires next week, about some of the infrastructure work that was to be completed, and it hasn't been yet since you all approved their subdivision. I guess that's what that would be called, but there are potentially next steps that we'll need to work towards, and we'll talk about that if and when that deadline is not met. So just wanted to remind you of that, somewhat outstanding matter.
Were you able to get a contract for the roof repair on that maintenance?
Great question. Thank you so much. I actually have it right here for Scott to sign. I was able to find somebody to do it for less. So it's a $28,000 contract rather than a. It's 40 something. So yeah, we can get that before it gets too much right here.
I think one of the questions we had, and I don't know if you knew the answer to them, is what fund that would come out of, or was that out of the general fund, or?
I think we did have an answer, and that was part of the discussion, but I don't remember what it was.
It was a cost center in the water sewer fund that was to be allocated for something else that isn't happening this year. So,
yeah. But yeah, we knew where it was coming when you guys authorized it. Right. Yeah, the inter-fund transfer. That is all I have to report. Did anyone have any questions about anything? Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Chuck. I like questions. It makes me think you guys are actually listening.
Right, I would entertain Entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
I move to approve the voucher as presented.
I second.
First and second, any discussion? All fair say aye.
I,
I have one question for, Anders too. If he's still there.
Relating to vouchers, or you want to do it?
It's unrelated.
Do it right before you close. Okay.
All right, anybody have anything to report for the greater good?
I do. I'm sending around some handouts right now. Today is a statewide shakeout. And so this is in preparation for the big one. Looks like Michael did this at work today. So
I was in the office, yeah.
remember the drills that you would do in elementary school. They're returning so that we know how to protect ourselves in the event of the big one. And this is generally to, I sent all of them out, but it's to drop cover and hold on. So
Stop, drop, and roll. One of the links to the office said, stop, drop, and roll. Like, no, it's a fight. We're like,
If you're on fire.
quit rolling around. No. Hold on.
40 years in California, I don't know anything about it.
Yes.
It's just the next meeting. We've had some of the items that, they're getting into it. If there's any, some of the items we discussed in executive session, to get a report at some point where we're at, whether that would have to be an executive session, so we know where we're at on those items.
Sure.
In previous executive sessions, so that we know where we're at.
Sounds good.
Oh,
Yeah.
where you're at is, you'll likely get one next month.
Okay,
Yeah,
so in other words, it's the progress, and
yeah.
so there were two issues, I think.
Yeah.
Three separate. That would be one of them. Okay.
I don't know the other one.
All right, do we do additional public comment first, or I don't know what you want, question you have to Anders? Where we're
Let me ask Anders. So Anders, help me to get this finalized in my head. The Transportation Improvement District, the 0.3% that we bring in goes into the street fund to offset the transfers in from the general fund to the street fund, is that correct?
Yeah, so currently our budgets, historically, we allocate 0.5% of what we are the additional sales tax that we have. We allocate 0.5% of that to transfer into the street fund from the general fund. There's no requirement that it goes there. It's general fund money. The reason we have part of that, like we've talked about, is so that we can fund a street fund. The street fund is able to have a transportation improvement district specifically for that additional sales tax. So instead of taking that general fund money from sales tax, right? Instead of all of that going into the street fund, it's going to the amount that we receive in from that's specifically for that transportation improvement district. We'll fund the street fund instead. Then that relieves that money from the general fund that will go to the water sewer. So really simple numbers. Currently, let me look real quick. I will look at
You're dealing with two different line items, though. You're dealing with the additional 5.5% sales tax for 25 of $40,000. But then down at the bottom, you have an interfund transfer coming in from the general fund, 25,000.
Correct. So the line item that you're looking at for the additional sales tax, which is what we're talking about, right, is the bars 31311000100, the additional 0.5 sales tax. Right?
And where does that come from?
That's revenues that we've designated for the previously, okay, for the from right, that sales tax to come in and fund that amount. So if you look,
Okay.
and this is where it's funny, like the goal is that revenue to the general fund is not decreasing, or sorry, revenue to the street fund will not decrease. It will stay the same, right? It will not increase, it will not decrease, it will stay the same. So all of the extra money in will be able to go, right? It's the shell game, right? And so this money that is here will go here, and the new money in will go back in its place. So it's that shell game of moving that. So that's why in the 2025 budget, you still see additional 0.5 sales tax in the street fund, because that's not decreasing. The goal isn't to decrease the amount to the street fund. But that 0.3 of that is now coming from the TIB instead of fully from the amount that we've gotten from general. Does that?
The 25,000 that you're seeing as a transfer in from the general fund is an additional transfer in beyond all those sales tax
So is the
components.
0.5 sales tax, is that actually a transfer from the general fund? That's correct.
It's labeled here as something differently. It is.
Because it says that's labeled as an additional 0.5 sales tax, and I'm trying to figure out where is that sales tax coming from?
Yes, general, it's good, that's coming out of, right now, it goes into the general fund.
Goes
and
into
it's
the general
transferred
fund.
So then we're actually transferring $425,000 in from the general fund.
Right.
Correct?
And that
Okay.
amount will stay the same.
All right, thank you.
I think the part that causes me a little confusion, and that is when we were doing the utility rates, the constant discussion I heard was you couldn't use general fund money. You had to use your utility rating. Am I missing something on that? You get my point.
Yeah, you don't use your reserves to pay for ongoing O&M.
Yes, operating.
Otherwise, your reserves are gonna be gone.
And so that motion that you made, you said $270,000, correct?
Per year,
Per year. So the total amount will be 2.7 million.
over 10 years.
That's what we're verifying.
Yeah, he's gonna verify that, but, or whatever it ends up being.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it could be
based
more,
on
that was an
estimate.
estimate.
Yeah,
Based on.
Yeah, thank you.
This is an opportunity. Oh, yes, Jeff.
Have we gone past the 13 issues for next meeting?
That's what
We were,
that's bringing up.
we were chatting about it, yeah. What you had, we were talking about executive session eventually.
Okay, well, these should be just informational items that that we should probably at least discuss at our next meeting. One of them has to do with the Russell Street parking. Talked to a number of the merchants in the area that have kind of proposed, I guess there was some discussion at one point about providing diagonal parking. Taking out one of the lanes, because we have 2 lanes going down right now, just taking out one of those lanes, putting a center lane, diagonal parking, maybe with a little bit of the parallel parking, give them more parking for the hotel
Oh, at Mid-Russell?
and mid Russell, yeah.
The one way.
Yeah, the one-way section between First and Second Street.
Do we have something?
There had been some analysis of that was done in, 12 years ago or so.
Yeah,
And so we're able,
Hasn't done while I've been.
we'll be able to pull that as a information resource, but the conversation can always be reinitiated.
Yeah, talked to a number of merchants there on the street that had suggested it. Anyway, the other item I had was just a simple one that came in to us from an email from a Jennifer Toledo. Last month was about the possibility of putting up a deer crossing sign. Remember that memo?
Mhm.
We never even discussed it, so at least if we discuss it.
We have chatted about it internally.
Oh, all right.
Where and how many is really what's the holdup on that, because they're everywhere. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure where we would be expected to.
Right, I passed 5 deer
Well, what
between my
about
house
turkeys?
and last year.
Okay.
Like,
He's,
Times two. So.
that's where we
I
live.
didn't know if it warranted a 30-second discussion or not.
And the streets that the city are responsible for are 25 miles an hour. So there's some indication that traffic speeds would be able to stop if there was a deer.
Okay.
So we did chat. So we're done. Anything else?
I do have. Just, so it's, it was introduced in the state legislature, Senate Bill 6231. It's really simple. I'm just wondering if we can look at potentially, ourselves.
Doing what?
Senate Bill 6231 in the state Senate. It's a prohibiting use of hostile architecture for publicly accessible buildings or property.
You're proposing that as an agenda item or something to discuss. So, very. Okay.
Yeah, it kind of hasn't gone anywhere in the state legislature.
Anybody else? Would anyone in the public like to provide additional public comment on items that we talked about on this agenda?
We could just call this Mary's secretary.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Nothing new.
Oh, and you have another member of the public, you might want to make some comments. Okay. First, I really would like you all to think about the carbon credits and carbon offsets. There's much more in this, and the revenue stream, we have trees. The city has them inside the city limits and we have them outside. So I'll be glad to work with anybody on that. I want to reassure everybody that public salaries are on a website. It's called salaries.gov. Your name is out there. Don't stress about that if you can. There's other things to stress about way more. But yeah, I was surprised to see that, but it's, and do we have, as a city, Tracy mentioned something, and I know a member of the city staff will be leaving on maternity leave. What is your policy on maternity leave? Is it 1 month, 3 months, the spouse and whatever? And if you need any staff help, Frances Heller is a person, the county uses her to fill in a lot of staffing throughout the county offices. So I don't know if you've used her here, but she might be available to help out with staffing and that. And thank you to Carolyn and staff for meeting with Melissa Elliott, a landscape architect about our downtown. Melissa was the one who put in all those things, all the flowers and everything on around Russell 14. And she's very good at her job, and I hope something can come of it. So we need that revenue stream to hire a landscape architect. Thank you very much.
yeah, Kara Owen, and couple things as you guys were talking about the budget. You referenced pages like 128 and stuff. Is everything that they have access to in what's available to the public to look at? Okay, is it in a different version in any way?
There's two ways that you can access any agenda item. One is as a full packet that has numbers on it.
Okay.
And one is each individual agenda item.
Okay. So I'll make sure as a citizen to look at that a little bit. I would be careful. One, incredible, Ben, that you have already in 17 days started looking at for ways to trim things out of the budget. And that's a lot to ask of someone who's stepping in as an interim And I would be careful to really limit our resources and farm things out to the county. They too are very limited on staff. And as a business in the area who spends a lot of money here, to get slowed down on things like permitting and other things like that is detrimental to all of us because it slows our economy. And so I'd be really careful that when we think about eliminating people or contracting services out to somewhere else, we really better understand all the things that these people do every day. Coming from a business that has 300 employees, we every day struggle with efficiencies and how we can do things better. It really takes coordination. It takes consultation. If you really want to look at efficiencies, you got to hire a consultant to come in and really look at how you do things because it's really hard to do from the inside. So, I will, as a citizen, look through the budget. I run a pretty big budget myself. We're in our budgeting process and knowing how we divide things out, there has to be some good faith in what we do. But again, I'd be very careful or we may lose, or we want the city to better serve the public. If we lose bodies, we lose the ability to do that. So just something that I would put forward as we think about that. I think you're.
I think that concludes our business day. We have here 8:36. Thank you. I need signatures.
Anybody else?
Yeah, if you're there, I'll take mine and Lucy's will plug in there as well. Lucy's on the side.
Okay, Lucy's is away. I'm trying to get, is this one here? That's you, okay? And here's me. Okay, I think we got it.
Thank you.
I know Robert also but it is literally the color. I want your color. And the whole deal. So I was saying, I'm like, aw.
Yeah, I think we need solar panels on all the buildings too.
So these, okay, here are these.
I really want the hybrid.
I don't know what's the other.
Especially if we're underground.
We'll like that, yeah.
Get that new underground stuff going.
No,
Right?
This will stay nice.
I know.
I didn't know. It's so hard to have kids.
Well, about the library.
I remember that. I bought all the seat covers, and we had a front covers, and everything's covered. Yeah. It's so amazing. Yeah, it's like raising children is incredible, and I loved every minute of it.
It's true. It absolutely has. It was a.
Things of your own. Exactly. It's where my daughter's 26 and she's gonna come home this weekend with two of her girlfriends to the house and I'm like, oh, again, we're ready. And they kind of take over and you don't care. They're there for such a short time. You're so glad to see them. These were kids that my daughter grew up with. So, you just love them just as much. So it'll be fun. But things that you're missing and I'm like, where's my hairbrush? Where's this? Where's that?
I'm missing some
Yeah,
sticker.
it's kind of crazy.
Right.
I'm trying
What are you gonna do about that now, though? You got-
hard, and then I never thought it was that. And I really want to do it right, but there's so often where I have to let them go, and I have to let them go. I think we letting go of It's so funny because there's.
So, Sheriff, you can get your,
You're in the space of like material things that are like, you have, are less important to you, right? And I remember coming on and like, look, tell me when you break something, it's gonna go a lot better than if I had money. And then when she does, you have to go, it's just a thing.
$405,837 just in the.
Let go of letting
And then she
everything
will get
watching her, like her eyes.
Everyone, 60% split between cities.
Today, and she's like, no.
Cities gonna get another 53,000.
Yeah, but it won't change that day.
Yeah.
Not until she's like 25.
Yeah.
And I know I know far more than that, you know, when I was upstate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's funny.
I went up to